Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Goodbye Bullshit, Hello Happiness. I have a very special guest with me today, Stefan, and he is going to be talking about his podcast, his creativity, all he does. But before we get into all of that, so my favorite question, Stefan, what bullshit did you say goodbye to find your happiness and say hello to your happiness? Welcome aboard, by the way. Welcome on the show.
Thank you, Atusa. Thank you so much. The thing that I said that I basically cast off was me being afraid to be out there. That was the hardest thing to say goodbye to because it was the biggest pile of bullshit. It was just like, so what if I'm seen? So what if people hear me? So what if people see me? That's kind of the point. So that was the biggest thing. And as soon as I was able to get rid of that, I was able to truly feel happy about everything that I'm doing.
So that's a great start. I love what you said. So what was the process? What do you feel like the reason why you didn't want to be seen? What was behind that? And now that you are seen, what has that given you? The power that it has given you?
So I think the whole reason why I didn't want to be seen, I was afraid of so many things. I was afraid of not looking a certain way, not acting a certain way, of failing, of the list is literally endless of the things that I was like, oh, I don't want to be seen because of all this. And like the turning point through working with you, and I've worked with even with a business coach, and I've worked with a whole bunch of different healers and amazing people. Um, the pivoting point was, so what? So what if you go out there? So what if you even if you fail? So what happens then? You just continue to do it. But if you're hiding it all, no one's going to see it and no one's going to know anything about it. So go out, stub your toe, fail, grow. And that's really what it boils down to. That was the biggest turning point for me.
I love that. So what if you fail? And I always like to tell people it's not really failure. It's think of it as falling. Like you said, stub your toe and fall. And sometimes that fall, I think it's necessary experience that we need to have to get even maybe a shift in perspective and gain something, because maybe that will get you to gain more trust in yourself and the universe, to get a different angle. It's like, oh, I didn't see this, from down here. Things look a little bit different. Oh, I like this view, you know. So I like that, you're not letting that stop you, because it's part of the process. And I think if we play on words and switch failing to falling, I think people will definitely have a lot more advantage and see things a little bit different. So what was your superpower now that you have that by your side? What's your superpower?
My superpower, what it really boils down to, the very essence of my superpower, is there's no fear behind doing the unknown. I can say I'm gonna do this, and I go ahead and do it. Like I said I was going to start putting more of my personal work up on social media. Like I would never talk about it, like what I've done, spiritual healing, just everything that I've done for self-care and self-help and healing, and the journey that I've been on. I never talked about it. I never told anyone about it. And I never said like, hey, like this is what worked for me. And I've actually said, screw it. I'm going to put this out here because, one, it might help somebody. That's a huge thing. And then two, it's like I don't have this anxiety or fear that like putting myself out there is going to do anything, because nothing bad can happen from that. Like it's just putting the energy out into the world.
So many people miss that point. And I have to say, everybody's heard me say I love my testimonials that clients leave, because I always feel they explain the work so much better than me. And, when people ask them, like, I can tell you, but the feeling of it, that's the best way you can get the feeling of what it means. Um, and to that, one of my favorite testimonials was yours, I have to say, by far, because there was two reasons behind that. One was that I have much fewer male clients than I do female.
Mm.
So my male clients are much less. And out of those, there are not that many that are willing to still put themselves out there and write the testimonial. So that was one key factor. But the major part of that was that you captured the essence of healing, that there is a process to it, there is a growth to it.
Yeah.
It's not like a magic pill that you come and, we went through this work and okay, now you healed and, you're going to get, but you understood and captured, okay, it's a process. It's a process that, yes, the weight is off, but I still got to practice it. I still got to do the work. I'm still involved in that aspect. So, again, really appreciative of that. But if you can put that again into your own words and talk to people about what that healing journey is like, what is it that they have to look forward to when they get involved in such a thing to start healing themselves, and what are the things that maybe even pitfalls that they should work through.
I think it's called a journey for a reason. It's that'd be great if you could take a pill and overnight and just magically be healed, but it's a journey because you're always going through it. And being a male is always there's a stigma of like if you're vulnerable, you're weak, and weakness is bad. But in reality, being able to be vulnerable, to be open to doing the work and to working with people on that level, that's really, I can't stress it enough that makes the difference. It's not an overnight thing. You might start with something small where it's just like, oh, I have a 5-word mantra that I just repeat over and over. And then you're going to get to a point where you're like, I know there's more and I need help. And to reach out for help is not weakness. That's being vulnerable, and being open to help is the first step in healing. Releasing that control of I have to do everything myself and I can't have somebody else, guide me or help me or even give me words of encouragement or minor guidance. Like it's that's your biggest hurdle, especially as a male, that you're going to have to get over. And once you get over that, you realize, oh, this is wide open field of beauty that you can just take in and go on this journey. And you're going to notice that you're not afraid to try the different things. You're not afraid to talk to a shaman. You're not afraid to go even just to talk to a therapist. Like it's little things here and there that all culminate into this beautiful point in time where you can be like, oh, I'm getting better. And I know that this journey is never over because it keeps going, and you just keep learning.
That word perfect, it is a journey. And if we can all say that to ourselves, repeat that as a mantra, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful journey it is. don't look at, like I always say, don't look at the moments that didn't go your way, because even in those moments, things are working out. You're just not aware of it. But if you know this road, I can't see the end of the road. It goes up and down and twists and turns, and it's a journey that it's not there's no timeline, there's no end date. And sometimes it's a straight across, sometimes it's a scenic byway that you're going.
Mhm.
So enjoy it as much as you can. And I like that you brought that out as well, that it's an openness to being vulnerable. And I think for everyone, you're right, it's such a scary proposition to say, I'm going to make myself vulnerable and ask for help, or vulnerable in sharing those emotions, because it is a very um, private setting, that you are going your deepest fears, your things that you don't want to share with anybody else, you're bringing those out. So it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to be able to do that. And the experience that you gain after, you're right, it is amazing.
Yeah.
It's because that vulnerability, if we can go, to me, I'd like to hear your point of view. It's like you're letting your guards and walls down, and in doing that and opening yourself up, and if you let go of all your fears gradually, then you don't need any barriers when you go even out into the world. I mean, you're trying it out, first of all, with your healer, shaman, therapist, whatever, or your group that is helping you. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to step out and try this vulnerability outside of these safe walls and see how it goes. And you're like, oh, look, I'm feeling a lot of people love me and support me, and things are showing up for me. So how has that been for you, that process?
I think it goes back to that idea that I was afraid to show myself, is that once I got over that hurdle and I was like, okay, I'm going to share this vulnerability. Like I am always open about mental health, and especially those that are affected with like ADHD. I was diagnosed very very late in life. I was 40 when I was diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to understand like the different struggles of neurodiversity, and I decided to just go out there and talk about it, and talk to people on my both on my podcast, and even just in conversations out and about, because the fear used to be like, I don't want to share this, I don't want to be vulnerable. And then I realized that no, by doing that, you get an understanding, and you start feeling that love, that connection with everyone, because you're not going through it alone, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's on their own journey. And then on top of that, it's not going to kill you to talk about stuff. So if it doesn't kill you, it's good.
It's
So
good. It's good. That's a good point. Let's all start with that. If it doesn't kill you, it's good.
yeah.
That should be your side. But it's a funny thing. But I always tell people that, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing in your life that can happen is like you die,
Yeah.
or it's even getting close to that point. So outside of that, compared, is it really that bad? No,
Yep.
most cases, no, it's
Uh,
not.
The worst thing, and then I can even go back to like the worst thing that's ever happened, is I was embarrassed for maybe a few seconds because I might have overshared, but then I realized that, yeah, I was embarrassed for a second, but that's all right. I
Yeah,
can
and I
get.
bet when you do that, though, the other person, whether they admit it or not, they really get something out of it.
Mhm.
It goes in, and I like everyone to realize this as well. In those things that you share, and in that energy that you put yourself out there, that energy itself, whether verbally somebody comes and tells you this helped me or not, that energy that you're putting out there by itself is doing the work.
Yeah.
You don't need that validation. I can guarantee you that it's doing the work because it's all energy that you put out there.
It really is. I have a really funny example. I have an upcoming episode of my podcast that I could have just deleted. I could have gotten rid of it. And what it was, the main topic was following your gut and that gut instinct and just really going with your intuition. And I couldn't figure out an analogy. And for the first 7 minutes, I was stumbling over my words and having issues. And then I kind of just stopped for a second and I was like, this isn't working out because I'm not actually listening to what my gut's telling me to say right now. And then it was where I turned and started talking and like speaking from the heart. And I was like, this is like an important lesson for me, not just for the episode itself, but just in general. Like sometimes even though you do all this work, you forget those little tiny tidbits like, oh, I should have been listening to my instincts and following that. And it's like we said, it's a journey. You're not healed overnight.
Yeah. But what a beautiful story. It's like right there. It was a live story for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I wasn't listening to my heart. And now that I am, look how everything is flowing.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
I couldn't help but laugh because I was like, I could just delete this and no one would know that this even happened. But I said, no, I'm going to keep this because this is valuable. This is valuable to put myself out there like that because it's never easy to hear yourself stumble, especially if you listen back to it. You're like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. But I understood the value of it. And, old me definitely would not have, that would have been deleted as soon as I was like, okay, I'm stumbling too much. I'm delete this. No one needs to know about it. But me now on this journey of healing, it understands the value of these lessons that come up in life. It could be from something as simple as that to even just getting a wave of emotion that you might feel from someone or something. It's sometimes it overtakes you and you forget like, oh yeah, I have ways to navigate this or to feel it and let it go through me. But sometimes it overtakes you. You realize in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, next time that happens, I can assess it and navigate it better. And it's like I said, just being able to accept it and be vulnerable and get through it is the best path you can take.
Key points there: acceptance and being okay with being vulnerable and understanding each time it's a process. Those behaviors, patterns, they've been there for many years. It's not an overnight switch that one day you're going this way. Now that I'm healed, I'm going to go this way. No, it's like I always use the example. Imagine like you have a job, or every morning you're getting up and going to a place and you got to get out of your house and drive to the right. Now you got to get up. Things changed. The work moved. You got to get up and go outside, turn to the left. How many days, how many weeks, how many months are you going to go to the right? You're like, oh my God, I did it again. I got to go to the left. It's a process. Sometimes even you find out like for a year, you've gone to the left. And again, one day you end up to the right. Like, why am I here again? Mm-hmm. So it is a process. Thank you for bringing all that. And I want to talk about your creativity as well. I know I've seen your photography, great photography work, beautiful work that you do. And I know your creative outlet is not just photography. You have different things you do. Even in photography, I noticed you do different things. So if you can talk about all of them and also let us know how you feel about your work before and after this.
That's a great difference of how I felt before and after. But I started in photography as a commercial photographer, which is the most boring photography to me anyway. There's people that might love doing real estate photography and stuff like that, but it's commercial work. You're not using a real artistic eye. There's a set thing that you need to do. Myself, I've always enjoyed a few different facets of photography. One of them in the fine art side of photography is there's a lot of long exposure photography and nighttime photography. And I enjoy like landscape photography. Everyone knows landscape photography, but I also found a niche of photography that is kind of like where my heart is, and that's pet photography. And when I look at what I do as a photographer in general, is I get to show people the world around them through my eyes. It's something that they might not see. And it's always been my love of that perspective to give people this vision of like, oh, this is how I see the world. So it's like, oh, you're looking at just a fence and it doesn't really seem like much. And then I take a photo of it and you're like, what's that? I'm like, that's the same fence. It's just at a different perspective with a different detail. And you can see the lines in it, and it takes the ordinary and makes it extraordinary. And then I started doing that with pets. I have two pugs, and the one pug, Philomena, she's been a little Instagram star for her entire life. She's going to be 7. And through her, I've been published in magazines. I've been interviewed. But what's happened over the years is I went from taking these nice, cute pictures of the pug and other pets to developing a style of photography in pet photography that people don't normally see. And it's kind of like doing a very high class headshot. And it seems like, oh yeah, you do a headshot with somebody, they stand there. I was like, that's great. Now imagine your subject is only 13, 12 inches tall. How do you do that then? And then their brain starts trying to calculate how I'm getting these shots, because it looks like that I'm standing below the shot, below the pet, and they look larger than life. And like, okay, so a lot of thoughts getting put into this. So I started putting all of this out on social media, and everyone would reach out to me, and through that avenue, I've been able to travel places and work with a multitude of people. But what I find really funny is I was always quiet about my work. I would post it on social media, but I wouldn't talk about it. I would kind of play down my accolades, which is something that, I would never talk about what I would do. I'd never talk about any like awards I've won, about any recognition I've had. Never talk about any of that. I would just be. And like whatever what would happen, if somebody would hire me, that'd be great. They'd always love their work, but I would never go out and promote it or talk about it or show it to the world and show the arc that I've gone on from when I started photography to I am today. And then after going through all this work and like figuring out what I'm doing, is I am a photographer. Like what? And I'm a very good photographer. I'm able to say that now. I'm just like, oh, I take pictures of pets. I'm like, no, I'm a actually sought after photographer. People pay me really good money to take photos and portraits of their pets, and to do a lot of photography and do fine artwork for them as well. Like I'm not afraid to say that now. At first, before was like, oh, that's boastful. I can't say that about my work. I can't. No, that's I should be humble. Screw that. I'm not going to be humble. I'm gonna say it loud and proud. Like I love what I do, and it's gotten to the point now where I'm putting all this together to even teach people to do it themselves. I'm putting together a huge course to get people to learn that pet photography is not just a thing, it's a thing that people can really fall in love with. There's a lot of people out there that love pets and they love photography, and they don't know how to make it work, and I want to teach it because I want other people to make beautiful images. I want to share that with people. All that would have not been possible before this my journey.
But I think the key point in that is that the way I see it from my perspective is that it's like you fell in love with yourself again, you loving yourself again, and bringing that love out even more into your work and into your creative process. And that whole energy is like, it pushed you that I want to share this now. It's not even about, I feel, not being about even humble or boasting or ego or anything like that. It's like, now it's like this big energy that I love myself. I love what I do. I love all these things that I'm creating, and I want to put it out there and I want to share it. And that love is coming out in all of them.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah, it feels so much better too. Like it, because before it felt like there was like a cap on the bottle, and it's just like nothing could come out because the cap was on it. No matter what I would do to like shake it up and try to get it, well, if you don't twist the cap off, nothing's going to come out. So getting through to the other side of, and that's really, like you said, it's loving myself to the point where this is me. Like, these are the things I do. I love writing. I love doing, photography. I love writing music. I love doing so many different little things. There's all these little creative outlets that I love doing, and I'm not afraid to do them. I'm not afraid to talk about them or to like show people the work that I might be doing. And it's all because like I first and foremost love myself to the extent that I do now.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And your podcast, that's really good too.
Yes.
Tell the audience about your podcast.
So the podcast is the Professional Amateur Podcast, and I always laugh because it's a moniker I've had forever, and it's a professional amateur in my eyes and in my head. It's somebody who's, when you're an amateur, people have a weird stigma about that word amateur, but that means you're always wanting to learn more and get better at doing the thing, that whatever that thing is, photography, whatever you're passionate about. And most of the time, when you find that thing you're passionate about, you end up becoming a professional at it, whether you know it or not. For me, photography was definitely that thing. And what the podcast ends up being is kind of my curiosity to other people out there that have found those passions in life and took it from like, oh, I enjoyed great great example. My one friend Deborah, she has a pug, and I met a lot of people through my pug, like I said, and she designed a bowl for her pug, and that was her passion. She's like, he has problems eating and he has issues, swallowing food, so I designed a bowl that specifically for flat-faced dogs so they can eat better. And through her passion, she has a multi-million-dollar business now.
Wow.
That she has this patented bowl that is just life-changing for all flat-faced dogs, for all dogs, really. And I couldn't help but realize that a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know have these similar stories where they got really passionate about a problem they had or something that they loved doing. And there was a turning point, whether they knew it or not, where it became what they did with their life. And I love hearing that story. And I started the podcast to do that. And now it's turned into something where I get to have those stories. And whenever I have a feeling or a topic that I need to talk about, I will record an episode of just me talking about that topic. And it's been one of those things. It's almost like, oh, this is another creative outlet for me. I get to talk out what's going on in my head, or talk about something that I might be doing, or a project I'm working on, or maybe there's an upcoming project with somebody else that I want to talk about. And I love doing that. And it's been like I said, it's been another creative outlet for me that it's been super fun.
One thing that was coming, and I want to get your perspective on. For me, I put away, I would say, I don't want to call it being perfect or anything. Like before, I think audience noticed my light went out again.
Yeah.
Stefan and I was a little bit late recording because I couldn't get the light. I don't know what was happening with it today. But, exactly. And then it was like, whoop, I'm not going to work today. But I noticed, with these shows, especially with the shows that I'm doing, at the beginning when I started, I was trying to make sure the volume is right, the sound is right, the lighting is right. And a little bit into it, I think universe just was teasing me the whole time that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you use this headphone or the Yeti microphone, which, by the way, my Yeti never worked. I don't know why. My Yeti never worked. And I've gone through, I've got 4 different mics. The mics, every time I came to use these so-called nicer mics, it all crapped out on me in the show. And I always came back to this headphone again. It's like, okay, I can rely on this. This works better. And even with my lighting, but I mean, I learned it's really not about, because for me, the value of this, when I started doing the podcast shows, the Goodbye Bullshit, Hello Happiness, it really, my motivation behind it was just to put the information out there that life is simple. Start saying goodbye to these rules and bullshit things that's been passed down to you that you're carrying on. And the more you let go, the life gets simpler and you become happy. And that was my motivation and goal. And I think the universe kept saying, forget the lighting, forget the sound, just put the words, put the energy, and it works. And I really haven't cared. It's like, okay, whatever. So that's what I found, that it's really not about those things. So I want to know any stories you have to share, what you're feeling is perspective.
So I had that same feeling probably almost my entire life. I just wrote about this too. It was basically like, do it right or don't do it at all. And man, what kind of brainwashing that was for all my childhood and adult life. And the whole idea of perfect, or making sure everything's just right, that is all bullshit. And a good story is, a long time ago, my friends and I, we had a podcast. And I'm not talking about a couple of years ago. I'm talking in 2010. We had a podcast that was a top 20 comedy podcast about, it was video games and entertainment and all this. And we were having a great time doing it, but we had this problem of trying to make it perfect. And it got to the point where it's like, oh, well, the one guy can't join and it's only going to be a 20-minute podcast. I don't know if we want to do it. And then trying to hit the perfect things, we ended up stopped doing it. It just fell apart. Because instead of just doing the thing and whatever goes out, it's not. I try to explain it to a friend of mine. I said, it's not that the quality of the thing is going to be bad. Your energy going into it is what's going to come out of it. So even if you are down a microphone, or say if the webcam stopped working, it's the energy I'm going to put into it. I'm still going to put into it me, like,
Mhm.
and that's what's
Yeah.
going to come out of it. And I think that's the hardest lesson a lot of people have to go through, is going through and saying, all right, I want to do it. I want to put out a podcast. I want to write a blog. Well, what's stopping you?
Yeah.
Well, it has to. Nope. Stop that. It doesn't have to do anything. Just do it. Just write a few sentences and post it. There you go. You're done. You did it.
And I think a lot of people get discouraged, especially in the creative type of work that you're putting yourself out there, because any kind of visual art, any kind of, podcasts, blogs, whatever, you are putting yourself out there. And then we sort of want this feedback. We're looking for this feedback. It's like, well, is anybody liking it? Is anybody reading it? Is anybody listening to it? And my go-to is that if even one person listens to my show,
Mm-hmm.
even if one person gets something out of it, and they're, whether I know about it or not, but if even one person, it made a difference in their life, that's it. This show was a success. That's it.
Exactly. I think that is the advice. That's basically, everyone should take that away, and go with whatever they're doing. Understand that I have records of my analytics on my blog from over the years, where there's been the first like 10 or 15 blog posts from a long time ago where not a single person looked at them for months. And then one of them got picked up by photography. It was like a bigger photography site, and they did like a little article and linked to it. And then a whole bunch of people saw it. But that wasn't until years later. And I was like, see, if I didn't put it out, if I went in like, the whole mentality these days is like, oh, it's not doing well, delete it, to get rid of it. Don't do that. You put your time and energy into it. You put it out there. People are going to come to it eventually. And that's the most important thing, is like, you're putting your time and effort into it. Don't pull it away from the universe. Don't say like, no, no one's looking at it now. It doesn't mean no one might look. It might be 3 years from now, and one person will see it, like you said. And that one person, we don't know if it affected them, but maybe it did. Maybe it affected them so much that it changed their entire life. That's all that matters. You just put that energy into it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I love all that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Stefan, for being here. I'm gonna put his link on the post, so everybody, if you want to get in touch with him, listen to his podcast, hire him for his photography work. I've seen those pugs; they're cute. They were part of our sessions, and I know them, but they were really cute. So go check out the pugs, check out his photography work, and everything's going to be in the link. Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for having me, Atusa.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.